There's the trusty ding. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So my name is Nicole Isbicki, as Brooke so kindly introduced. I've been with Motorola for, oh gosh, probably 3.5, somewhere between 3 and 4 years at this point. Currently manage our solution specialist team. So my team deals with the whole CommandCentral portfolio. So for those of you who are completely unfamiliar, just for kind of some context, CommandCentral is sort of an umbrella or a portfolio term that is made up of multiple products, CommandCentral Aware being one of them. So just as kind of you all move forward in your different timelines of deployment and new things and all that sort of exciting stuff, just know that, again, we're talking about a suite of products here with Aware being one of them. I only reiterate that because sometimes just folks refer to CommandCentral as a whole, which can get confusing, especially if you are at an agency that maybe has some of the other CommandCentral products. So if any of you have heard the term citizen input, smart transcription, those are all a part of the CommandCentral suite. So again, I just don't want to kind of confuse. We are going to focus on CommandCentral Aware today, as Brooke said. And just for the sake of this call, I do also want to reiterate that I'm definitely taking a very narrow lens of GIS and kind of those capabilities. I can guarantee that probably everybody on this call is more of a GIS expert than myself, so forgive me if there's any sort of nomenclature or things that I get incorrect. Maybe Brooke can correct me here if I say anything kind of out of line. But that's kind of the context for the call today. You'll have the recording from today's call. We'll definitely make sure we get you all some kind of basic documentation on how to do what we review today. And again, because we're dealing with different timelines here, some of you could have this in your hands very soon or already do, and we could be talking months down the line here. So what I also want to push is that Brooke certainly has my contact information. I would say feel free to reach out if there's any questions. We'll give you the information on how to contact support as well if there's like a legitimate thing that you need to kind of open a ticket on. And then I also have Jason Gentry from my team who's on the call today as well. I throw his name into the mix because between the two of us, we'll try to kind of keep the pulse on your Aware deployments moving forward. So hopefully we can give at least the GIS folks here some sort of consistent person to reach out to. So moving forward, the hope is that Jason and myself can kind of tag team and deal with any questions you might have as this stuff starts to land in your hands. I also do know a couple of you from previous or other kind of calls and engagements. So hello to those of you who already know me. It's good to see y'all again on this call. So I'm just going to share my screen really and kind of walk you through what we're going to talk about today, because it's better than kind of explaining it in concept. So give me 1 sec to get that sharing set up and we'll move forward from there. Okay, so this is CommandCentral. Currently, I am in CommandCentral admin. So again, kind of moving forward, just know that CommandCentral Aware is the sort of, let's call it, end product that the call takers, dispatchers, whoever are going to be using as end users. So Aware is comprised of a map, as Brooke implied. I can show you that as well today. It's also comprised of what we call an event monitor, which is sort of a text-based or like tabular view of the same sort of data. And then there can also be a video component, which I'm not going to touch on today, just because we're mostly dealing with like PSAP and dispatch space. But some of you may come across that as well. So this is the map. And again, forgive me, this is kind of a demo environment, so it's kind of empty. But let's see. what is in here. So again, keeping kind of our GIS lens in mind, CommandCentral Aware can ingest what I'm going to call sort of two main buckets of information. One of those is what we call event layers, and the other is map layers. So event layers are going to be things like your actual Vesta 911 call location plotting on the map. So you'll get an icon for every Vesta call location, and that icon will come with, you know, information, who's calling, you know, you'll get a little pop-up window here. Agencies will have the option, depending on what they've bought, to bring in things like their CAD feeds, certain unit and radio locationing. All of that would fall under this bucket of event layers. What we really want to talk with you all today about is the map layer bucket. So Aware has the ability to ingest map layers and services of multiple different types, and a lot of that is in the administrator's hands. So that's what we're going to be kind of quote unquote training you on today. As you can see, we as Motorola deploy a traffic and a weather map layer by default. We really honestly just kind of do that to get agencies off on the right foot, maybe give them some inspiration as to how these map layers can be used. It's totally up to the agency and the administrators and the end users on who, like, if you want to keep those in the system at all, you can certainly delete them, or you can just keep them off. So again, I just want to give some context from the end user perspective here, that once you all or an administrator provisions or adds map layers to the system, as an end user, there's kind of two layers of permissioning and visibility that I just want to call to everybody's attention so you know how it works. Once you're on the Aware map, you'll have this layer menu. Which map layers show up in this menu is permissionable by user group. So I would encourage you to kind of touch base with whoever is going to be the maybe overall administrator of your CC Aware system when that goes live. And to reiterate that if there is a specific subgroup of users who need to either have access to a certain map layer or not have access to a certain map layer for whatever reason, that is possible. So we can control what shows up in this layer menu kind of from the beginning. And then once you have it available, every single end user has the option to turn the map layers on and off. So my map can look different than Brooke's, can look different than Jason's. Even if we're all in the same CC Aware environment, it's up to the end user really what they want their map to look like. Same goes for base maps. So I have the option here as an end user to change my base map. You'll see right now I have 3 options. Again, that's permissionable. So we're going to, from an administrator point of view, we're going to dictate which base maps our end users can even choose from. And then it is up to the individual end user to toggle between those base maps. So just to, I know right now you're looking at an empty map, so it doesn't look, you know, super glorious, but if you can imagine some plotted icons here with, you know, your Vesta call location information plus the map layers that you all will provision, we're starting to talk about really building context, building kind of a real good baseline of mapping information. And then the rest of the call I'll just cover from an admin perspective, how to get those map layers actually provisioned. So I know it's a very large call. I will pause just for a moment. If there's any questions on kind of the end product, you are also welcome to throw questions in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
When a user sets the map layers up, will it open up with those map layers up every time, or do they need to reset it each time they sit down?
That's a great question. So there, I'm just going to call them settings, should remain from login to login. So basically, if I were to log out right now, the next time I log in, my map layers should look the same as they were the last time I was logged in. Go ahead, Crystal.
When we add our CAD layer map, we have a bunch of like color-coded things in our map, will that show on that layer?
I'd probably have to see it or get a further understanding of what exactly is color coded. So I might have to pause on that question and then get back to you.
Okay, and my other question is, can we force a view on our users, or is it all optional?
Great question. So today, there are no sort of canned or forced views from an administrative level.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me hop over. There was one more raised hand. I don't know if it went away. Can locally produced base maps be used? So I'm going to say globally, Steve, yes. So you have the option to provision both map layers and base maps. I'll walk you through that in a moment. And if you see any red flags while I show that window, we can try to dive into the details of that. Del, go ahead.
On our vested positions at our consoles, there are several map layers that are failing to load.
Okay.
But in my office, they're loading. Is that something I would get with Motorola later on to troubleshoot?
Probably. I think that's probably the best bet. So I'll make sure y'all have the info to get a support ticket opened. I would say if it sounds something, what I'm going to call machine specific, I'd like that to go to support so that it can be tracked.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. See, good questions. Settings for login to login, is that the same workstation? So yeah, good question, Jabra. So it should be both. So your settings should hold from login to login regardless of the workstation, because Aware is kind of cloud and browser based. If you're kind of down the road, once this is live for you, or maybe it is today, sorry, I don't know what agency you're with. If you're seeing issues with that, it might be a backend settings thing, but it should hold from workstation to workstation too. All right, John, and then I'll hop into the admin side.
Yeah, this looks like a custom web app builder application. And is that true? And if it is, with that being retired, is there other plans to upgrade this to the more modern versions of Esri web app stuff?
Ooh, I don't know that I can answer that question for you, John. So I'm not the product owner per se.
Oh, okay.
No, it's okay. It's a great question. I just unfortunately don't have an answer for you on kind of what is on the roadmap. But if I can get that question in writing, maybe through an email or through Brooke or something, I'm happy to pass it along and get you some sort of answer.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Great. If there's other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I am going to jump into the admin section just because that was the purpose, and I don't want to kind of over talk myself here. Okay, so again, just to kind of get everybody familiar from a navigational point of view, you can see that, you know, this whole time I've been within CommandCentral. Right now I'm in CommandCentral admin, and then I had switched myself over to CommandCentral Aware. So that's what I meant when I was kind of talking about multiple products within the same thing. CommandCentral admin is going to be kind of your let's call it a catch-all admin place for anything CommandCentral related. So obviously, again, I'm going to talk on the GIS points that are pertinent to Aware today, but just know if you're at an agency that is dealing with other CommandCentral products, CommandCentral admin will remain the same sort of administrative portal, and you'll just deal with different parts of it. What I also want to point out here is both in Aware and in admin, once you get yourself an account, you'll see this little information button, and just know that the contact information for support lives in this button. So this is not something that you have to remember or store on some sort of sticky note that you're going to lose. This lives within the product. You can contact support via phone or email. I would say if it's like a full-on outage, that's something you definitely want to do over the phone. You know, I think it was I don't remember who it was having an issue with some certain things loading, I would say that you could probably do via phone or email, right? So just use your judgment on both which one you want to engage with and how big of a widespread issue it is. If it's something really major, I would encourage you to do the phone call as opposed to the email. And again, I would say once you reach the point where your agency is actually using this, or somebody has said, you've quote unquote gone live, from that point in time, I would say you're probably safe to contact support. Again, myself and Jason are happy to stay involved with this kind of GIS focused group, and we're happy to take your questions as they come up. So you can certainly start with us, and if it needs to become a support issue, we can point you in that direction as well. So depending on kind of your timeline. Okay, to log into CommandCentral, you would navigate to just commandcentral.com, and then assuming that an account has been created for you, you'll be able to log in from there. Now, if you don't have admin privileges kind of from the beginning, or when your agency sets this up, they don't set you up as an admin, you'll obviously be redirected probably to a page that you do have access to, or you'll get some sort of access denied message. If that happens, again, it's probably a permissions issue. So I would encourage you to reach out to whoever the other administrators might be, and just say, I'm getting an access denied thing. Can we check my permissions? Once you can get into admin, you'll see kind of these 6 tiles here. And I want to focus again on kind of the provisioning of map layers. So you would come into application settings, and then what you see on this page will differ from agency to agency. Again, I'm in a demo environment, so I probably have more tiles here than you will. The one you're looking for and is relevant to this group is this bottom one that says Universal Web Map. So I'm going to hop into here. And then this is kind of the first step in the process on actually getting your map layers added to the system. Now, again, Motorola deploys weather and traffic by default. I'm going to pause and reiterate one thing that we have already organized with Brooke moving forward. So in addition to the weather and the traffic layers, if your agency is a new deployment of Aware, so you didn't have Aware previous to whenever you're going to get it over the course of the next year, we will also deploy 2 Arizona-specific statewide map layers that Brooke has provided to us by default at the time of deployment. So if you are a new user and whenever your agency gets Aware in its hands, you log in and there are 2 map layers that are specific to Arizona, that was done intentionally. Hopefully we've gotten the internal pieces to not, miss any of you, but if there's a concern or you think you should see those map layers and you don't, please. Brooke, I don't know if there's any details on those map layers that you want to add real quick while I'm talking about them.
Yeah, of course, Nicole. So these map layers they contain kind of the fundamental data sets needed, address points, road center lines, and those would be the address points and road center lines that are based on the data that most all of you provide to our office. So when you push updates via the one spatial aggregation portal, those will be written to essentially kind of down the line, written to those feature classes that are going to be in those maps. So by just uploading your quarterly at minimum submissions of address points and road center lines, that will be updating the information that our office has provided in the Aware map.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brooke. So again, just moving forward, I would say the plan is for net new CC Aware deployments. We are attempting to put those in at the time of deployment or go live. If you are an agency that already has CC Aware and it's going to, let's call it, mostly remain the same as a part of your Vesta upgrade, and you would like those, I would say either reach out to Brooke or myself. I have the info that I can provide for you to get those provisioned as well, and it should not take you very long. again, we're mostly trying to just save y'all a step and try to kind of make things as consistent as we can. But it's really, like weather and traffic, we're just trying to give you a place to start. But you've got a great statewide kind of system in place here. So we're trying to give you what we can at the time of turning this stuff on for you all.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes. Hi, Matt.
Hi, this is Matt. First and foremost, I'm so sorry I had an emergency.
Okay.
I apologize for not joining earlier. Since you were answering some questions, there were two questions I see in the chat. I don't know if they've been answered, but those are two that I can answer.
Perfect. Let me see the bottom two. Yeah, I mean, you can take them. I would say
Yeah, let me take
go
them
ahead.
since I have a little bit more local knowledge here.
Please.
So yeah, so for those who have Vesta Map today, yes, you will continue to go through AT&T. They are the maintenance provider. So if you have any issues or things related to Vesta 911 or Vesta Map, you continue to go to them first. Aware Map is going to be for those sites that have Vesta Map today. Aware Map or Aware for 911 is going to be the migration replacement of Vesta Map. Okay. You will also notice, and into the next question by Jeff, he asked about logins and so forth. Aware for 911 is part of the CommandCentral portfolio, just like Smart Transcription and Citizen Input are. So that is the same login and username that you have today that you'll have with Aware for 911. So when you log into one of them, you'll be logged into all of those. Okay. And then Karen just texted a question. Would building maps be an additional layer?
Karen, do you mean floor plans when you say building maps or something else? I just want to clarify.
Yeah, I like floor plans.
Okay. Matt, if it's okay, I can touch on that.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So Karen, I'm going to say, let me do this chunk, and then floor plans is kind of, it's related, but it's a little bit of its own beast. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to pause, but I want to cover it before we get to the end of the call.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, great. If I forget, bug me again, please. Matt, anything else you wanted to add, or should I keep rolling?
If I would say, if I didn't, to those that who had the questions, if I didn't answer them, clearly, please let me know. Otherwise, we will continue on. But of course, if you have any questions, everyone, and you can put them in the chat, and I'll be taking a look at that.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Matt. So we've come into CommandCentral admin, application settings, and again, those original 6 tiles that we saw have now moved to my left-hand pane. And then we've come into Universal Web Map. If we want to add a new map layer to the system as a whole, we would come here, we would click Add New Layer, and then the first thing is it's going to ask you what the layer type is. So feature, imagery, KML, again, you're all far more versed in these than I am. Vector tile, web map. So you can see that there's a bunch of options here. The 2 that we are deploying that we spoke about kind of by default that Brooke has provided are being added as web maps, just for kind of context, if that helps anybody once they see them, once you're in your systems. That's the type that we're using. I'm just going to click feature as an example here. You would do next, and then you'll land on this kind of provisioning window. Now, what I'll say is that very slightly, these fields will change depending on what layer type you select. So for example, if I were to do web map, these fields would change very slightly, but for the most part, we're talking about the same process here. So I'm just going to use feature as an example. First, you'd give the layer name. Now, just keep in mind that that name is what will show in that layer menu on the Aware map. So obviously, the more straightforward and consistent you can name it, the better. Layer order, again, forgive me, GIS folks, if I butcher this description, but that's going to be the order that essentially these layers stack on top of each other on the aware map. So if you have something like actually the 2 web maps from Brooke that we're going to be deploying, I would suggest that those remain towards the bottom, if not at 1, because they're kind of being used as almost like a base map. So something more kind of swathing in size, something that you want to remain underneath all of your other layers, you'd put that lower on the list than a higher than a higher order. Now, admittedly, I will say that I have really only seen issues related to a layer order when agencies start to add a whole slew of map layers, so like 15, 20. If you're only adding a couple of kind of really centralized or like important ones, I would say that in my experience, layer order doesn't pose a huge problem. But if you have end users who are saying, they can't see a certain map layer, or it's not displaying right, I would say layer order could be a place to troubleshoot. Not saying it's always going to be your problem, but a good place to come back to. These label toggles are related to whether you have labels built into your native layer, so kind of on the Esri or the GIS side, when you build the layer out, does it have labels, and do you want to bring those in? These all also have little kind of tooltip hovery help descriptions here. Now, the most important part, right, would be the URL field. So the kind of most important piece of information we need to bring these layers in is the URL where the service is being hosted. So assuming you have that, you'd pop it in here. We do have authentication options. So if the service is behind either a token or some sort of credentials, you can input those here on this menu. And then you've got a couple of other fields here. You would click Add Layer, and then it should show up in this list. So again, that is a very global version of step 1 of this process. Let me just do web map as an example to the fact that the fields might change a little bit. So here, again, instead of just the URL, I have an option between a portal item ID or a portal item URL. It's one or the other in this case. So again, the fields may change what I'm going to call granularly, depending on the type of layer that you pick, but for the most part, the process stays the same. Okay, let me pause. I saw a bunch of stuff hit the chat. Justin, it looks like Brooke is going to address whether you have the right link to start, and then we can go from there, but happy to troubleshoot once we get beyond that. Does CommandCentral aware to only take web services? Yeah, good question, Sarah. So today, it's really all being done kind of as services. So you can't take like a native shape file and upload it in. You would host the shapefile as a service and then pull that service in. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. Thank you.
Okay,
it just made me
perfect.
wonder about high availability. So obviously with 911, that would be a high availability environment. And if
Got
we,
it.
do upgrades or things on our servers, that it would be taking that down then.
Yeah, and again, and Brooke kind of alluded to this too. Kind of by design, I'm assuming that this was done so that we kind of eliminate a maintenance step, if you will, right? So really what CommandCentral is doing is looking to these services to say, what do I need to pull in? But the nice part about that is when the service, like when changes are published to the service, they will update essentially in real time in CommandCentral. So again, we kind of eliminate a fault point, if you will, but yeah, today it's really service-based. Okay.
There's a couple others that are, yeah. And then John, I see you raising your hand. Let's get to these 2 questions, and then John has a question as well.
Yeah, for sure. So Justin, this is a point where you've gone beyond my GIS knowledge. I admittedly don't know what a VTPK is. So if you want to shed a little light, I can attempt to answer, but I may have to pass the question on to somebody else internally. I don't know if you've got a mic or not, Justin, but you can throw some more info in the chat too. And then Keith, hi Keith. See, I know Keith.
Hello.
Add our own layers with authentication. Would there be a roadmap to allow us to add layers on our own managed maps?
Basically,
yeah, go
I know
ahead.
we can add lots of things into Aware's map, but Aware also provides information for us that we may desire to include on our own maps if we've. I know our team has a rather robust system that they maintain during the week that they could feed Aware info onto. So just wondering if there's a plan to ever make this relationship bidirectional kind of thing.
Wow, great question. As far as I would say, to my knowledge today, that's just a no. I don't know if that is on the roadmap, but I can ask.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And I answered Justin's question by not knowing what he was talking about. So glad to hear that, Justin. Sorry that I was not more help there. Okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't being pushy. I just hesitated on whether I should hesitate. I was hesitating whether to ask the question or not. But so if we have Aware currently running, and then this map here, so we have Aware currently running to support our operations center.
Yep.
And then this would be we would create a new map to support the dispatch, or can you only have one map in CommandCentral?
Yeah, so good question. I'm going to attempt to answer it, but if I miss the mark, let me know. So each agency, kind of gets their own, what am I trying to say here? There's your CommandCentral environment. So right now, as you can see under my name, I am in this Aware deployment training CommandCentral environment. So within that, only one Aware map is going to exist because this environment only has one instance of CommandCentral Aware. Now, what might come into play for some of your agencies, and what I think you're implying here, John, is that there's a question of, let's say you have the police department and the PSAP. I would say we have seen examples of both, where sometimes both of those share a CommandCentral environment, and sometimes we deploy them separately. So I think that's a question that's probably going to have to be tackled at the time of your PSAP deployment on whether that's going to be a new environment or using the current one that exists. If it's the current one that exists, you would just come in and add more layers. If it's a new environment kind of from scratch, you would do that from there.
Okay, yeah, because we would want two different maps for two different purposes. One map to support real-time crime.
Yeah. Okay.
And then one map to support the PSAP. So I guess you answered my question. We would have to stand up a whole other environment. We can't just point the PSAP to a separate map.
So interestingly, so you're kind of getting at what I would call layer sharing, which is also an option, John. So basically, let's say you end up with an environment that the PD or the real-time crime center, quote unquote, owns, and then the PSAP is going to get their own. When you add map layers to the PSAP's environment, you'll also have the option to share those with the other agency.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to provision them twice. What I would just encourage is, if you're going to go down that road, try to have some sort of even basic agreement written down on paper. But yes, the availability of the feature to share between is an option.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nicole, I think the short answer is yes.
Yes, the short answer is yes.
Great.
Yeah, the real-time crime center can have its own map display, and the comm center can have its own map display. But like you said, there's also the ability to share between the two.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, great question and great use case. Thanks for bringing it up. So that is how you add a new map layer of various types, as we saw. Now, really quickly, I just want to show you that you do have the option to add an actual base map as well. Similar process, just different fields. So instead of map layers, you'd click base maps, add new base map, and then fill that out appropriately. Now, as you can see, there's 20-something base maps that come with the system by default. But as I alluded to earlier, you don't have to make those a choice that are visible to all of your end users. So just keep that in mind. Once
Hey,
you
Nicole,
do this, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Sorry. So I think we missed a question by Brian. He's assuming is the projection WGS 84?
Brian, I'm going to have to confirm with you. This actually came up when we were trying to troubleshoot something recently. I don't know off the top of my head what is required, but I can get that answer for you. They're also, I will say, again, this is from a recent interaction, they are trying to add some native error messages related to those kind of projection, like baseline format errors if we see them. So again, I would say today, if you need to troubleshoot something, just reach out to us and we can ping the right folks. But they're trying to do some work to kind of make those error messages more native. Oh, John, you're with Glendale. Okay, sorry, that makes way more sense. So yeah, yours will, I'm gonna assume, will definitely be a different environment, but again, you can share between them.
Great.
Sorry, I should have asked that up front. It would have been a cleaner answer for you. Okay, so once you have provisioned your map layers here, the second part of the process is the permissioning out to groups. So again, I'm not sure how many of you that is going to fall solely to your purview or maybe a different administrator, but I'm going to cover it just in case. So you'd exit this application setting. You would navigate back to your groups page. And then let's just say I wanted this dispatcher group to have access to the map layer that I just assigned. You would click on the group, you'd click application specific settings, and then come down to where it says universal web map. And then you'll see the option to check the layers on and off. So right now, if somebody was only a member of this dispatcher group, when they logged into the actual aware map, they would not even see weather or traffic in their menu. So again, this is sort of your options to, you know, quote unquote, lock these down. Now that sounds kind of severe, right? But there are use cases for that. Let's say you have a fire specific layer, but you have users that are both from a PD and a fire situation. You only want your fire users to see the fire layer. That's totally doable. And this is how you would do that permissioning out. So you would check them on, and the same applies for base maps. So again, to determine which base maps the end users can switch between, you would check them on here for the group as a whole. So again, the kind of process of provisioning these map layers is 2 steps. First, you have to actually add the map layer to the system, and then you have to assign the map layer out to groups. You have to do this for every group that you'd like to have access to the layer. So for some of you, that might be more complicated depending on kind of the user structure or the size of the agency. Again, this is kind of why we have taken those 2 statewide web maps and are trying to do it at the time of deployment so that maybe we can save you some steps. But globally, this is the process that we're talking about. Application settings, add your map layer, then come to groups, select your group, application specific settings, universal web map, start checking the boxes. Okay. Brooke, did you want me to do user creation, or should we save that for maybe individual agency training?
Yeah, I think maybe saving it just because we don't want folks to create too many users.
Yep. Nope, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then I guess the other piece to touch on, somebody messaged me separately. As far as kind of what this looks like for the PSAPs, as far as grant administrators and kind of the leaders in each county, or in some cases for certain places, municipality levels, right? So in the situation like a Pinal, for example, if at that local level, Sarah currently and her team, they do the provisioning of the Vesta map local, right? So if that works, and going forward, we would, Sarah and her team want to continue that role of administering the data for all the PSAPs that fall kind of under their administration. And I do that, in kind of quotations in their collaboration. Then what could happen very easily is Sarah would be basically able to have an admin account to all of the PSAPs within her jurisdiction. And then she would still be that main administrator. And in that drop down that Nicole showed, where it showed it was a demo, she would just have the option to kind of toggle between a couple of different PSAP environments.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I see it, as kind of being similar to what we do with the Vesta, right? So if Yavapai County, you currently manage the Vesta map and kind of do the map roles for Camp Verde, so on and so forth, you can continue that. But if there is interest in the PSAP having their GIS being more involved, like a local GIS person, then by all means, let's not lock the door and keep people out. I just think we want to make sure everyone is trained and understands the importance of bringing in quality data. But I even think, to some extent, if there's a PSAP manager on the call that's really interested in administering some of this data on their own, we could work with you on how that would look too. So there's a lot of options in how we want to proceed, and I think that's the bonus of this. Unlike Vesta, where it does require some more native kind of GIS skills, I think in this case, as long as you understand the workflow and the quality of the data you're bringing in, most anybody on this call could be trained to do it.
Right. Yeah. All great points, Brooke, and I would agree, right, that that as you can see, the ease by which to bring these in to CommandCentral itself is not challenging. So I think it's just a bigger question of kind of administrative roles, who wants to hold those, and then internal communication across agencies and just what people want that structure to look like. Just because Brooke touched on it, I do want to show just this mechanism here. So again, right now I'm in this deployment training environment, but if you do have the option using the same username, so the same email address, you can create, or you can have an account in multiple environments. If that's the case, you can switch between those or have access to them relatively easily. What that would look like is you'd click your name, you'd click the drop down, and then again, for me, I am in a whole slew of them. I would just scroll through and pick the environment I want to switch to, and then it would load up and I would be in the new environment. Now, again, permissions are obviously at the environment level. So, you'd have to work with an administrator to make sure you've got the right permissions to get to what you need. But assuming that, you can switch between environments. So that probably will come into play at that county level if you would like it to. All right, I'm coming back to my chat here. Hi, James. I know we've spoken in the past as well. So how to reset a map to defaults. James, do you mean the aware map? Like how to reset that? Or are you talking about actual map layers? Yes, as a user. Okay, so just so that you know, on the aware map, yeah, great. Thanks, James, for pointing me in the right direction. Once you're on here, if you click this settings wheel, you have a restore map option. Really what that does is it essentially takes the map back to whatever it looked like the first time you all logged in. So the real benefit to that, I would say in my experience, is if a user comes in, they've got 20 map layers or things in their layer menu, they start toggling things on and off. or because, as you can see, the aware map is borderless, right? So right now I'm in Phoenix, but I could, scroll all the way over to, Chicago, Indianapolis. If that happens and you have a user who just really doesn't know, like they just want their map to go back to, let's call it fresh, they have that restore map option. Also, every end user can set a home location. So that's specific to the end user. So in this example, if I ended up in Indianapolis and I had gone through the work of setting my home location to Phoenix, I could click that button and it would take me back to Phoenix. So James, okay. So as an admin, have a layer turned off by default? Good question. So back in admin, when I went to this groups page to turn the layers on for a specific group, you'll see that you have two toggles here. So enabled on the map and visible in widget. Enabled on the map is, I believe, the toggle that you're referring to, James. So, and sorry, it usually gives me little hovers, which it's not giving me right now. But you should get a tooltip explaining the difference. But basically, enabled on map, if it's on, means that the map layer is on by default the first time that that user hits the map after it's been added. Sorry, that was a mouthful, but I'm getting a thumbs up, so hopefully that was clear. John, are bookmarks saved / shared among the team? Yeah, good question. So both the home location and bookmarked locations, as you can see here, are user specific. So those are for every end user to provision and set themselves, which will, I will say, long-term definitely be covered in whatever sort of end user training your call takers or dispatchers go through. But yeah, end user specific, John. Can other folks see your bookmarks? Not unless they log into your account.
And then I
That
think
should be
there
a
was,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, listen,
That's a
you'd be
fine
shocked
no.
at the things I've seen, but yes, that should.
Hey, Nicole, before we get to Steven's question, I got the answers to the earlier questions for you.
Perfect.
So, so WGS 84 is the datum, right? The projection, that is used is called Web Mercator 84, and it's all a standard ESRI AGOL standard. So, it says the projection that is set, will be able to match without a hassle. But WGS 84 is the datum, and I think that's pretty much what everyone uses nowadays. The VT, I figured V was vector. VTPK, I looked it up. It's a vector tile package. And Mr. Freeland confirmed that, yes, that we support vector tiles and web tile services as well.
If they're hosted as a service, you just can't do the actual file. So I think that's the what am I trying to say? The determination to be made there, but yeah.
Yep. And then let me answer Steven's question. His question is, how do we find out about our migration path and time frame? So right now we're working with the sites that are still yet to be cut over. Those are the remaining sites in Maricopa County. So if you are Mesa here and you're with Mesa PD, Chandler PD, Phoenix Fire, and Phoenix PD, those are the next ones to be converted. We will be working with, we being Motorola, we'll be working with Brooke at the state as well as AT&T to come up with a plan to migrate the Vesta Map local sites to Aware for 911. So that is still in the works, but we're looking to get past this year first, since we have some major deployments coming up here. And then Kim, she asks, is our map host Geocom? I don't know how to answer that, Nicole, other than no.
Well,
Right.
that's probably a question for Brooke.
Yeah, I
If
was
we
going to
load our
chime in
map
on that.
files to Geocom, are they the ones that are then sending to Vesta?
So the current workflow with Vesta Map is the extract from your local GIS goes to GeoComm. They create an MMPK, a map package, basically a static file, and then send that to the Vesta Map to get uploaded. And usually that's with the GIS, or our office will push that through. So yeah, it seems like you have kind of a workaround internally for you. So that's that one, and hopefully that answers your question. And then I wanted to go back to Steve's question, Steve Whitney, who will host the web services? Is there a recommended architecture for high availability? Steve, I think redundancy in that. From the state perspective, we are publishing out those fundamental data sets. And for the high availability, we have them published as vector tiles, just because we want them to render quickly for our PSAP managers and dispatchers on the floor. So that's what I would recommend. If you have local data sets that you want to be pushed out, then you would be the one to publish those web services and provide them to your PSAP managers, or administer it on the Aware map or the CommandCentral admin portal that Nicole just showed. Good question. I know we're kind of getting close to the end here, and I'm excited to see everybody has a lot of really good kind of interest and conversation. So this could definitely be a continued meeting. I don't know if we have to answer all of them today. Maybe we can schedule a follow-up if you all see that there's value in it. It seems like there's a lot of interest, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think this is great. John does have. Why don't we go do John's question? And,
thank you.
And then, yeah, Brooke, why don't we circle back, you, me, and Nicole, and let's see what would be the best type of follow-up topics. I think we should do more of this.
Yeah, I just have one quick question, a very high level. This whole environment, you guys are hosting the whole thing, right? This isn't coming into our current CommandCentral environment. This entire thing we saw today is all hosted by you guys, right? Or not?
I might need more specifics on that question.
Like who's hosting and this map that you showed that we'll be using in the PSAP? Is that someone other than us in Glendale, or are we installing a whole nother server or whatever environment in our environment to support this?
So
I can now. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Brooke. I was going to clarify what I think he's asking there, but
John, so the web map itself, the Aware map that we are going to be logging into, that is a Motorola solution. The data in which is being added, the workflow that Nicole just reviewed with us as far as adding layers, those layers that can be added to the Aware map will be held internally.
Okay, but who's hosting that solution? Who's running the web servers for all that? That's Motorola doing that on their environment? Or are we running that in our environment on Motorola software?
For the Aware map specifically?
Yeah, for the whole web thing you showed today.
I would default to Nicole and Matt. I don't know. Do you guys have AWS?
The way.
Well,
yeah.
no, I just want to know it's not us. It's somebody other than Glendale is hosting that map and publishing that map, right?
No, we do not publish the map.
Well, who hosts, like when as a user, am I accessing a Motorola server on your environment, or is that server sitting in our environment?
So CC Aware is browser, it's cloud-based, John. So
but who's hosting the cloud software? Is it you guys?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, I thought it was going to be a little bit.
That's I think the nuance here is that it's our software, but it's not our data. You all still have to provide.
I know that.
Connection to the data through some sort of web mapping service.
Correct.
That could be through that could be through ESRI. It could be through a local.
No, I get that part because we have a way of running our servers inside our environment, but this is a separate environment that you guys are hosting. So that's all I wanted to know.
Correct. Okay. Yep, that's
Wonderful.
right, John. Yep.
Great, thank you.
And yes, so for all the questions regarding the recording, once it's done kind of rendering on our end, I'll share it with Brooke, and then it sounds like she has a good method to share it out to all of you. And then we will accompany that with at least 2 documents, so sort of a quick guide to the process that I showed today, as well as the Aware admin user guide, which reviews this process as well.
The video recording of this session will be available on the Arizona 911 website, as well as that document. So be on the lookout for that, and then I'll send an email to just remind you all that's where you can access it.
Great.
Thank you all so much for your time. If you have questions, follow-ups, please direct those towards myself, and then I can kind of help get them into the right hands. I really want to appreciate shout out Nicole and Matt, both of them, for making themselves available to go through this. I know it's early, but it's better to kind of know what's on the roadmap early and often. So thank you all so much for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. And
Absolutely. Thank
Brooke,
you all.
if you want to consolidate a list of questions, feel free to send that over as well.
Okay. Thank you all.
Have a good day.